Hey folks, I'm back living my lowest carb life for Wind Down. Come in, come join us. Let me make sure this is off. Come in, come join us. It is Wind Down Wednesday! Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Y'all, this week, what are we? 3 days into the week? I'm already tired. Are you tired? I love it. Hey folks. Hey folks, come in. I've got my rosé. All right, let's make sure we can get our guest in. Ashwini, let's see if she can come in. Okay, let's see. Hey, Bruise and Banter. Hey, what's going on?
Hi.
Hey, hey
Hi.
friend, how are you?
Good. That rosé looks amazing.
Piggy's up. I had to.
Yes, of course you do.
I had to. Hey everybody, I got folks coming in. Hey, hey. My waving isn't working. Okay, there we go. I'm so glad it is Wednesday. It has been such a long week. I am always looking forward to Wind Down Wednesday. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Orion Brown. I'm the founder and CEO of Black Travel Box. We're a personal care products company for travelers of color. So I created Wind Down Wednesdays because, no, I'm not a wino. I mean, I could be, but I'm not, I promise. But through COVID, we've lost the beauty of being able to travel whenever the heck we want or need to. And so Wind Down is all for us to just kick it, maybe talk a little mess, but really get into travel and get excited. So whether we're traveling next week or 6 months from now, that wonderful feeling is with us. And it's certainly great when you have a rough week. One of my favorite things to do when I was back in the corporate world was to book a trip when somebody pissed me off. I'm not going to lie. I'm like, I had a rough day at work. I need to book my next trip. I just need to know that I'm going and it's all good. So,
Nice.
so today we have, oh my gosh, a twofer. This is your second time, yeah? This is your second
Yeah,
time
thanks for
coming
having
on?
me
Yeah.
back.
I love it. I love it. Ashwini, tell everybody who you are, where you live, where you're from, and the very next place you're dreaming of traveling to.
I was hoping you were going to ask me. Hi, everybody. I'm Ashwini Prasad, also known as the Inclusive Screenwriter. I do work in the entertainment world, or trying to break into that door with the entertainment world.
We call it done. It's done. It's done.
Done.
You're in.
To bring inclusion and belonging into the arts. I'm also a podcast host, inclusive storytelling, and wrote a book about how to write inclusively last summer. You know, COVID, and it was needed. And so, so happy to be here. And I am all booked up in 2.5 months. I'm headed back to Boston and New York.
Ooh.
So I'm traveling from the West Coast.
I was going to say, are you actually excited, though, to be traveling to the Northeast or East in the fall? Like, is that something that's, like, really intriguing to you?
It's a great question. It's mid-October, so it's not going to be horrible. So yes, because of that, because I'm hopeful that the rain won't have taken the leaves off. And I've heard, like, I live in a really beautiful space. I'm in the Pacific Northwest, but I've heard that the East Coast falls, there's no comparison. So I'm like, okay, let me go check this out. So I'm hopeful that the rain won't take away all those beautiful colors, but I'm looking forward to that. And I haven't been back to Boston in like 9 years, and it's been 2 years, it'll be almost 2.5 years for New York. So I'm super excited to get back there and see a couple of people that I know. So hello. Yeah, so I'm so excited. What about you? Did you book anything yet? I'm staying domestic for now, or at least in North America. I'm not ready for international yet.
I was ready for international yesterday, but I don't trust some of the places that people have already been because they're just like out there. Like it's like so I always refer to Tulum because I'm like Tulum has like 50 million people down there right now because it's been open the whole time. Everybody's partying. It's cheaper to stay. And while that sounds really great in practice, or in theory, in practice, I'm like, I don't even, it's not even COVID cooties. It's all the rest of the other cooties that it being passed around. I'm like, not really my thing. I haven't booked anything international, but next month is our birthday. I'm really excited. Whoop, whoop. We're turning 4. Isn't that insane? I can't believe it's been 4 years
Wow.
since I started the company. And we're going to celebrate up in Sonoma. So part of our I Fund Women campaign that still has like 4 days left. So go to I Fund Women, look for Black Travel Box. We have some amazing experiences out there that we're going to do. We're doing an amazing dinner under the stars. I just did stuff that I wanted to do because I was like, I had been inside for a year. So what would I want to do? I want to have a lovely dinner. I want to hang out with great people. I want to do it with lots of wine in tow. And so I'm going to be out there for a few days, actually, in August. And then I need to start booking next year for next year's stuff.
Yeah.
I definitely need to do a trip around my birthday, which is in February.
Me too.
And hey,
My birthday's in February as well. So
oh, you're a February baby.
I am.
Yeah, I'm looking at going to Carnival for my 40. Like I've never been to any of the islands for Carnival, so I'm like, while it still hangs where it's supposed to, I feel like I should just, get my costume and hop in.
Go. Yeah, and hopefully we'll be over this hump, right? With the Delta variant and everything. So fingers crossed. So that could be a great time. Sedona sounds wonderful. Oh, yeah. I was in Sedona November 2019. So, right. It was like one of my last big trips because I was talking to my hairdresser. I was like, oh my gosh, the last time I got on a plane was January 2020. So it's like, oh my gosh. So, and Sedona was a trip right before it. So good for you. Go enjoy. I love those red rocks. They just speak to me. There's something about them. I feel them.
Sonoma, not Sedona. But Sedona's nice too. I do want to go there.
I thought you said Sedona.
No, it's okay.
Oh my gosh. Oh, you're going to wine. Oh, you're going to big old wine country.
Wine country, honey. Wine country. Right in the Bay Area. But Sedona is on my list. I have actually never been to Sedona. So like, only thing I know is that there's some good spas and that they got red rocks. But is there more to Sedona that I should be looking at? Like, do I need to like make a weekend trip out of this?
Oh, absolutely. You need to go there. Yeah. Just like you're going to Sonoma, you need to go to Sedona as well. You would love it there. It is, it's just magical. There's a lot to do there, lots of different hikes. And it is like people would be like, oh, it's become so commercialized. I get that piece, but I think it's worth it. It's worth a weekend trip just to see if it's your vibe. And I love the Bay, so Sonoma's going to be amazing. Oh, and there's so much good food out there as well. Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to try to control myself a little bit. I'm trying to keep my low carb wine, which sounds gross. It's actually pretty good. I'm not mad at it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I was like, I'll get some steps in before I go because it's about to go down.
You can get your steps in as you go from winery to winery.
There we go. Instead of getting a driver, I should just walk from winery to winery. I mean, and not do it like downtown because that's a cheat, right? Like if you're in downtown Sonoma, it's like 10 feet and you hit another winery and it's like, oh. Yeah. But like, really go for it.
Just hike. We see on the farm roads on the side. You're like, no, I'm good. I don't need a ride.
I'm good. No, yeah, with my glass. No, you guys keep going. I'm fine.
Could you?
I got my reps in. I got my steps. Yeah, we're good. Oh my gosh.
Oh, just enjoy it. And so what are you thinking for your birthday? Are you thinking international then?
Yeah, I'm thinking Caribbean. I'm thinking like full on Carnival. Like with the headpieces and like the sparkles. I know I'm going to be in bed by 9 because I'm like, maybe the second day, but the first day I'll try. But I know I'm going to be in bed by 9 because I'm just going to be like, I'm so old. But until that moment, I'm going to get some good photos and some great food because every time I'm in the Caribbean, I feel like I eat more and I weigh less by the time I come home because it's just like natural and good and homemade and so I'm looking forward to it. But I haven't picked an island yet.
Okay, yeah. Oh gosh, yeah, I don't know I know enough about the Caribbean, but the actual islands that do the Carnival big, I don't know, but you will find it, and yes, do it. Do the headpieces, do the necklaces, do the, all the wonderful dress and get into that culture. Yes. Post those pics and show those videos too. That would be amazing.
That's another reason why I have my low carb wine. I'm like, we have to have pictures from this. I'm gonna need photographic evidence because I probably won't be doing it again. But yeah, I think it should be really fun. I've heard great things about Trinidad, although I'm a little intimidated, I'm not gonna lie, because like anytime you go to a country that's known for an event, it's usually, at least in my opinion, a bit overwhelming, right? It's like, I'm gonna go for the running of the bulls, and there's like a million people there to see the same thing. And it's like, ooh, ooh. So I don't know. There's a few places that I want to go that are like known for specific events, and I'm like, I need to go to Germany for Oktoberfest, and then I'm like, that's a lot of lederhosen. I don't know. Is it going to be too many people?
Maybe you go right at the tail end, so you catch enough of it, and then you're like, okay, now I'm just gonna go visit Germany. So
Right. That I said it. I did it. I've been there, done that. Got the T-shirt.
yeah,
What are
like
some places that you? Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead. No, oh, looks like we have somebody who said they want to go back to Tobago in a heartbeat. So there you go. Maybe that's the island for you. You get a whole
Oh
mix
my
of
gosh.
Carnival and a beautiful island to spend some time on.
I mean, that's really the key. Like, I can always run away to a beach. Like, I can always be like, this is overwhelming. Let me just take my headpiece off because I'm already in a bikini and lay on the beach.
Perfect.
I mean, you gotta flow. You gotta flow with it. You gotta flow with it. Have you been to any like big international events or like cities that have like a big event going where you're like, I can say I went to that?
Oh my gosh, yeah, good question. I'm like trying to think. I mean, I think my biggest is when I went back home to the Vancouver, BC Olympics in 2010. And so, ooh, yeah, I was there. I was there. It was so cool. So it was interesting to see like the city change and accommodate the Olympics, like the torch that's still there. And then I remember it's called Robson Square. I don't know, there's a square somewhere, but it's a really big street. And this
Uh-huh.
person ended up going off and doing this. The word's escaping right now. A tightrope, and like just this huge firework comes up, and what's the word when you're on this little thing on this tightrope and you
Yeah.
go from one end to the other?
Like from building, yeah, it's tightrope.
Tightrope, but they weren't walking. They were on the thing. They were hanging, and so this firework goes up, and they just zip line, and they zip line like I don't know, like how many yards, like 4 football fields, and it was like at night, and it was just beautiful, and it was perfect. And actually a friend of mine from high school, she actually ran, so she actually touched the torch, and you can purchase it. So she had purchased the torch, and I got to hold a real Olympic torch. There's a picture of me holding a real Olympic torch. So that's probably
Oh
my
my
biggest
gosh.
yeah, that was
That
so
is
fun.
amazing. That is so much better than any story I've ever heard on Wind Down. Hands down. She's like, yeah, I got to hold the Olympic torch and I have a picture. And I was not an athlete in the Olympic Games because I'm just that bomb. My friends are that cool.
Yeah.
That
Well,
is awesome.
yeah, my friend, well, it was in honor of her sister. Her sister had passed away from breast cancer. And so my friend ran in her place. And yeah, she was telling me the whole story. I got to see my friend run, saw it passing the torch, and she told me, like, you can buy it. And of course she did, to honor her sister. And so it was cool just kind of knowing the nitty gritty of all that. And then yeah, it was cool. You know, being able to touch it there. So it was a whole experience. I got to see my city change. I got to be part of the festivities. I got to touch an Olympic torch, and yeah, it was really
Did you
cool.
touch any other Olympic torches? I mean,
Yeah,
like,
I
did you
know.
go to like the Olympic Village and hang out? I don't know.
Yeah, no, they wouldn't let us near that. You can't get in there. And
Oh, you can't get.
when it was in Vancouver, it was between two spots. It was between Vancouver and then Whistler. And Whistler is like a 2-hour bus ride away, 2.5 hours. And so a lot of the skiing and everything, of course, was up in Whistler. So, it was the Vancouver Olympics, but really it was like 2 hours away.
Now that's different. Yeah, I mean, but that's kind of nice too, though, right? Because when you have major things going on in any city, I find it tends to be really hard to get around because the city's not used to that many people. Like Lollapalooza in Chicago, which I think was last week or somewhere. When I lived in Chicago, I just didn't go out Lollapalooza weekend. I'm like, I can't even walk down the street because there's so many people.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, you're like, and people are like, oh, you're from Vancouver, BC. Wow. And I'm like, yeah, I am. When you live there, you just take things for granted and you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to downtown this weekend. Like, that's what you, right? That's what you do. You're not like, yay. You're like, oh,
Yeah, you're like, no, I'm tired. Where are your parents? Okay, that's just me. I'm like, why are you guys so loud? Why are you having fun at 2 a.m.? I'm trying to sleep.
I'm trying to sleep.
I swear I'm not actually a curmudgeon, but I kind of am.
We value our rest, right? Like I'm
Yes.
like, okay, so I'm the type that can fall asleep on a plane, so I'm blessed that way. So it's like, okay, so I'm always doing the time zone thing, like, okay, do I need coffee or not need coffee? Because I'm gonna be in bed by 8 because I need my full sleep so I can be ready to go the next day.
Oh yeah. I do like like I sleep like a vampire as soon as I get in the seat. As soon as everybody's in the seat, if I'm not at the window seat, which is its own curse to not have the window seat. I love the window seat. My big head can just lean on it. It's great. But I get in my seat, everybody's in, I buckle up, cross my arms, and just knock out. I mean, I've woken up still on the tarmac before because the flight was late and like we were delayed like 3 hours. I slept 3 hours on the tarmac. Had no idea. I was like, did we land? I didn't feel us land.
That's amazing. One time I remember I pulled it. This is when I was young. This is my like late teens, even maybe early 20s, and I pulled an all-nighter. And I literally fell asleep. I wasn't flying. I was taking a bus, and I literally woke up 6 hours later, and I was like, "Oh, I'm home." Like, because I don't know what it is. It must have been like there's a theory. Maybe the folks that have joined us may know if there's any truth to this, but people say like if you were taken in a car when you were younger or you were soothed, maybe because you cried a lot as a baby, they say that sometimes people feel like the hum of an engine is soothing to them, and so people like can fall asleep on a train, a bus, a plane, car, no problem. Well, other people totally can't, and I'm definitely one of those people. I'm like you. I'm just like, okay, let me find my comfortable spot. I'm out, like just out for 3 to 6 hours.
Out like a light. And I was one of those babies. I mean, that there was actually a few years back. I want to say it was Pampers. I can't remember which brand it was, but they did this promotion where they gave parents in Brooklyn a free ride if their kid was colicky and couldn't sleep. So you could call this number and it was like an Uber just to drive you around until your baby goes to sleep. So you can take them back in and like lay them out. And I was like, that is the most brilliant thing I've ever heard in my life. That is marketing.
Yeah. Everybody's gonna be taking Pampers. Like, I mean, $20 here and there, you're gonna get a lot. Like, however long these people want to have children, you're gonna have that income coming in. That is brilliant. Yeah, it makes me wonder if there's some truth to people that were soothed by engine sound. If we're the ones that can fall asleep, because I have other friends that are like, "You're taking the red eye." I'm like, "Yeah, because I'll sleep," and they're like, "Oh, lucky," and I'm like, I didn't know luck was a thing when I fell asleep.
I will say I've trained myself to do it because I wasn't like when I first started flying, I wasn't like I would have to take a Benadryl. I'm not gonna lie, I would take a Benadryl to go to sleep because I get motion sick, which is hilarious and stupid all in of itself. So the takeoff and the landing, I hate. The middle, I'm totally good with. Now I've trained myself so well, I can barely stay conscious. Like it doesn't even have to be a long flight, and I'm like, okay, I know we're gonna land in 20 minutes, but it's really, really hard. But the thing that I struggle with, and I don't know if you struggle with this too, but when you're doing those very long trips, like really long international trips, and you're gonna be on a flight 8, 10, 12, 15, 20 hours, trying to figure out when I should sleep versus when they're bringing the good food.
Yes. And then exactly being able to stay awake for it versus waking up and it's cold and it's on a tray and you're like, oh my gosh, did I just sleep through this? And how long has this been sitting here? And, and then you feel bad, especially if you didn't get the window seat, because then you're like, oh no, who has to go to the bathroom? And I've just been unconscious.
They're just screwed because I was out cold. Yeah. Although I do feel like on international flights, people are so used to traveling internationally that they're more like prone to be like, oh, excuse me, I need you to wake up. I have to go pee. Like,
Oh, totally,
practical.
totally.
They're like
I know.
more practical.
They are. And then I love it for me when I'm just like, okay, do I stay awake for them to come back or just doze off for another like 2 minutes until they come back?
You know what? I give them like a 2 to 5 minutes. Like, but if they're waiting in line, I close my eyes again. If they're not waiting in line, then I'm like, I'm gonna give you enough time to pee. And if you didn't pee, then I'm going back to sleep
I'm
because you may
out.
be in
I'm
there
in
for
bed.
20. Like, just nudge me when you come back.
Well, to answer your question, I do mental math, right? Like I do check the little screen. I'm like, okay, what time is the local time? So do I eat? Do I sleep? Do I watch a movie? What do I do? Because yeah, it's like for me, I'm always like, okay, yeah, coffee or am I going to bed? Which of the two am I going to be doing, right? Like, because
Yep.
it's good. Like usually when we're landing, it's either going to be in the dead of night or it's some atrocious time, like 6:50 in the morning, and then you got to figure out how to get to your hotel if you can check in and all of that. So I
And by the
know.
time you get there, you're awake and you're like, well, crap, when I landed, I had 4 hours to go back to sleep. Now I'm at the hotel and they're like serving buffet breakfast. I may
Yeah.
as well.
I might as well. And then it's like, okay, I'm full. And these are like super privileged problems. Let's be real, right? Then I'm like, okay, well, I'm really full and I'm really tired. So what do I do? Do I sleep or do I walk this off? So, but you know what?
You don't want to miss the day of action, though. You don't want to
Yeah,
miss the day of the trip just trying to like sleep it
exactly.
off. It's hard.
Exactly. But you know, I'm looking forward to getting all back into all this and getting back into the travel and so I'm starting, you know, domestic just for now. Just gonna, well, I shouldn't say domestic-ish, you know, Canada, United States, do that for now. And then maybe I don't think it'll happen this year, but next year, like you, I'm thinking about it'll be Egypt, Morocco, and then I think I said that last time. And then I'm thinking about you going back to the UK and France for the kind of the big international trips.
Nice. So I've been to Ireland. I haven't been to like England, but I've heard that it's really expensive, rainy, and the food is miserable. So what are the great things? Those are things I've heard. I'm just telling don't shoot the messenger. It's just what
I'm
I
not
heard.
shooting messenger because I didn't have that experience. So I love London as a space. I would live there for somebody was like, hey, here's a flat, here's some job, hang out. I would totally live there for 6 to 12 months. Absolutely. It's a fun city. I mean, there's so much to do. There's so much history. Also, the second largest population in London are South Asian Indians. So I know I'm going to get some really good food. You know, you and I, we love our food. And so I had a great time when I was there. And then what I also love about being in the UK is that how quickly you can get to so many other countries, so many other cities super quick. So I love that.
So one, I think you hit the nail on the head. Go for the ethnic food. If you're a foodie, go for the ethnic food. Because like, you know, the baked beans and like, you know, the things that come with breakfast in the UK are definitely like,
You're like,
really
no.
want that. But I love this idea of, you know, there's something really fun about finding, you know, migrant food in these different countries. I've been to, you know, countries that I've of course had the local food, but then it's like, you know, you find a little shop, a little pizza shop, and it's like a mom and pop place that they came from, you know, the boot of Italy, like, you know, the tip of the boot, and they're like, this is where you can find us on the map, and this is my grandmother's recipe, and I just started making pizza here, and I'm like, can you guys do that in America? Like, this is, you know, it's so good.
Yeah, totally.
So
No,
do you have like, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask if you have favorite spots in London that we should be on the lookout for. Like favorite foodie spots. Or are you going to like somebody's mama's house?
I'm going to somebody's mama's house. So, but I will say, you know, it's like what I love about, you know, across the pond and like more on the East Coast versus the West Coast is that there's actually like little villages. So like, you know, you have the Chinatowns all over Canada and well, most parts of Canada, US, but you don't have like the little Italies where you'll have that in a London or New York or Toronto. And so that's what I love when I'm in London, especially, not necessarily all over the UK, but in London, you have little pockets of these different ethnic groups or many different groups living in a small space. And so you can go from the Armenian shop to the Italian shop to the Indian shop, and it's, you know, 30 feet, you know, it's 3 different shops. So that's what I really love about the UK. So I say give it a shot because I've never been to Ireland. So I'm going to hit you up when I go to Ireland. But, you know, go to the UK. I think London is a stop, of course. And then I mean, you got to check out all the beautiful sites. What I love, and I still love this about Toronto and I love about New York and Boston as well, is the architecture. Like look up. I remember I had a friend in New York and we were hanging out, right? If you look up, there's, I mean, the detail that's in the history. So I love going for that. I love finding out about the history. And like when I go back to Boston now, I'm really looking forward to looking at the history through an anti-racist lens. And so I'm super excited.
Go ahead, girl.
Yeah, right. So I'm really excited to go back with a different lens that I have been in the past, just to understand the history. So that's why I say, you know, yeah, don't discount London. You got to give it at least 3 days, and then you can decide if you need to bow out if it's not your place. But you give it at least 3 days.
And you have the benefit, like you mentioned, that it's close to so many other places that you can try it and not feel like it's a, you know, oh, that was a bust. But it sounds like with the architecture, which I'm a big architecture fan, if you've ever been on a Chicago architecture tour, like,
yeah, right.
so good. It's so
So
good.
good. So
And
good. And the things you learn.
the things you learn that illuminate history for you, right? Like that go, oh, I had no idea because I'm here and there's a Trump Tower now and there's like cool wineries, but it's like there was so much history built in, and that's a Midwestern city, but you know, New York is the same way. I'm totally with you. I will look up and run into stuff. That's my problem. I do run into things, but I love looking up.
You're enjoying. You're enjoying. You're looking up. I mean, that's why we're here. And like, I will take pictures, and I'm like, literally, like when I was in New Zealand, I would say 60% of my pictures were just buildings because I'm just like, I love the architecture, so this is what I'm gonna do, right? Somebody gets it. And so I'm with you. It's like, why not? And it's so beautiful. And like when I was in Europe last, like one thing that I like, my heart hurts is like, I'm like, dang it, we don't have this type of architecture, especially in the West, in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
You can't compare it. And you can go to the East Coast, right? Montreal, even it's a different feel because
of doesn't have that history.
Yeah, exactly. Those are more established port cities. And so just seeing that, and it's just like the details, the lions and the heads, and I mean the carving, and I'm just like, dang, how did they do this? Like we barely do it today. So, you know, like the architecture, the talent that went into making it, when we didn't even have the technology and the engineering we have today, it's just mind blowing to me. I mean, I haven't been to the pyramids yet, but I know I'll be like, dang, who did this? Who did this?
I've seen so many like Discovery Channel specials where they're like, so we try to do it ourselves and you can see the men are pushing, but the stones won't move. And it's just like, what? Like the ingenuity of man, I hate to put it that way, or of mankind,
of humans. Yeah.
Of humankind. It's just, but it's truly like awe-inspiring if you're a big nerd like me. Like I spent all my time in Sevilla looking up, all my time in Barcelona looking up. You know, I could just hug the walls because they were just so beautiful. And it's like someone's hands touched this and made it look like that, which is amazing.
And you know, even if you look at like when you're inside a building, the columns, the richness in just one column, let alone the entire building. So I'm with you. I'm
Mm-hmm.
always like the one with my jaw dropped and I'm just looking up like, ah, like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And yeah, and then I'm like, click, click, click. And I'm that one stupid person in the middle of the road trying to get the best angle of this big building, you know, and stopping
I
traffic. And
love
I'm
to get
like,
that slightly tilted where you can feel how
yes,
tall it is. Yeah.
right.
I mean, I'm by no means a photographer, but that in my head, I'm like the best photographer ever. And I always take pictures of, especially in like places that have little trellises with flowers hanging off into like a cobblestone road kind of thing. I'm like, yeah, I
Oh,
want all these pictures.
oh, and then I'll see that road in a movie and I'm like, I'm going there. You know, like especially if I know they shot it
Yes.
on location, I'm like, where is that? Because I'm going, because I need
And
to
how do
find
I
it.
get there?
Yeah,
Have you,
exactly.
what are some fun places that you've been? Like you've been like, I need to get there. You've seen it on TV or you've seen it in a movie and you're like, I need to go. Where have you actually gone? I'm making my
Amsterdam,
list.
couple little niches in Amsterdam. And then I want to go to a couple places in like Indonesia that I've seen that I'm like, oh yes, like that looks amazing. And then different places in Africa where I'm like, oh my gosh, that looks phenomenal. And then actually, so there's a place I want to go, and kind of in reverse, what was interesting, when I was in Florence, I saw one of the Hannibal Lecter movies, and he
Mm-hmm.
actually like he does something horrible to a person, and then he takes a knife and he cleans it on this fountain. I was like, I have a picture of that fountain.
Hollywood blood has touched this fountain. Oh my gosh.
Anthony Hopkins was at this fountain. So yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So it's fun both ways, right? Like I'm going there, and then also like I've been there. Oh my gosh, I've been there. I know exactly that winding street or whatever.
I I've told this story a few times on Wind Down because I both feel like an idiot and I'm also proud of it, oddly. But I went to Croatia. I was in Dubrovnik. Gosh, it must have been like 6 years ago now, 6 or 7 years ago. And I'm there. I'm in the walled city. It's absolutely gorgeous. And my friend and I decide to walk up the road from the city and just explore. I mean, it's just so beautiful. People are so friendly. And it was just like, yeah, we'll just walk, take a walk, see if we can find this little beach that we spied from like the edge. Because it was all like, waterfront, beachfront. And so we end up getting to this spot that's basically like an abandoned resort. And it's outdoor, right? So we go in because we're dumb. Um, and we're walking around and there's like graffiti and stuff on the walls and it's multi-leveled and it's outdoor and you see where they had these pools that are now like drained and we're like, okay, cool. I think we can get down. This is like a really cool spot. And I think we can get down to that beach down there. We turn a corner and there's this huge guy. What are you doing here? Oh God, oh God. Here, take my friend. Don't take me.
Right,
Um,
right.
and she goes, we're just trying to find the thing. We're just trying to find the thing. Can we find the thing? Is it all right? And he's like, okay, fine, whatever. And so he told us where to go. We come around and there's this big platform. It's like a big stage almost area. So overlooking the ocean, absolutely gorgeous. Kind of stadium seating, but like, just in different levels. And I look at it and I'm like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. It's absolutely ridiculous. There are like red flags everywhere. There's like a dragon painted on the floor. I was like, what in the medieval times is this crap? And my friend's just like, I don't know. Like, it's just weird. Let's go to the beach. We go to the beach. We come back. We go out a different way and we find this little side road and there's a car parked. It's the jankiest little gremlin of a car I've ever seen. And in the window, it has a handwritten sign that says closed set. And I'm like, this is what they
What?
watch in Croatia. They watch like random medieval times silly stuff. This was before I had ever seen the show Game of Thrones.
Oh,
So I don't know if you've ever watched Game of Thrones, but for those of you who are watching it and know Game of Thrones, I think it's the 5th season where the mountain crushes old boy's head, like the cute guy that's from the east, and crushes his head in a fight, and everybody's screaming bloody murder. I stood right on top of where he crushed that guy's head and did not take a picture. I did not take a photo because I was like, this is the goofiest, stupidest thing I've ever seen. Why would I take a picture of this? They had also stripped a lot of it. off, so it
Yeah.
didn't like it wasn't fully a set because they were done.
Yeah.
So they must have been shooting like within a day or two of that. Like
Well,
it
and
wasn't.
Croatia has become the spot. Like a lot of shooting happens in that area, so it's pretty amazing in that country. Like I think the Falcon and Winter Soldier they shot there as well, like recently. Well, recent-ish. Yeah, I know,
Fortunate,
right?
yeah.
And so yeah, it's great, but yeah, isn't that funny? And some like I think there's a lot where you can do where you're like you don't even realize where you've been because you're like, oh crap, that was there, or that happened, or this significance, and you're like, oh, I wish they need a plaque, like it needs just something,
Yes.
or like or something where you can just scan the QRC code and it gives you all the history of the
Bruce
area.
Willis once yelled and shot a gun at somebody here. Like that would be so good. I would be so down for
Right?
that.
That would be amazing. We got the technology. Come on, we can do this. Yeah.
It's
Because one thing
augmented reality. They should just make an app that you have it on your
yeah,
phone and you point it around and you can see. Maybe they even like put the scenes over the space so you could see it
that'd be
like
cool.
happening in real time. Wouldn't that be dope? That's a freebie for
Okay,
somebody out
it's
there who
out
wants to
there.
start a tech company.
It's out there. It's out there. Let's do it. Well, I mean, how
We put it out
amazing
there.
would it be for people that like enjoy traveling? Like that would be huge for me because then it's almost like having your own tour guide, right?
Oh my God,
And
yeah.
yeah, and so you're in anywhere, like anywhere you can get Wi-Fi. If you can have your own little tour guide, that would be amazing. Instead of like Googling, I'm at this altitude, longitude, latitude, what happened here? Nothing like that. But
What
like,
had happened
ooh,
here? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, some of that
But
history.
there's so many places. Like the thing that immediately comes to mind is that like Tom Cruise would dominate that app because he's jumped off of buildings in pretty much every country and like ran like a madman. So like I want to see like all of the like Fast and Furious cars like driving through like I want all that on my tablet or on my phone. That would be
That'd
amazing.
be
So somebody go
fun.
make that.
Or when you go to Lombard Street in San Francisco, you're like, oh yeah, oh how many movies has this street been in, right? When they're just
I have no
winding through.
chill. I have zero chill. Number one, I fell in love with Mark Harmon when I was a kid. I didn't know how deep my love was until I got older, but I fell in love with him when I was a kid from this movie called The Presidio. He was still really young and really hot. And the first time I went to San Francisco and realized that the Presidio was there, like it's a place in I was like, oh no. That was the first thing
Oh
I did.
no.
I went directly to the Presidio and I was like, Mark Harmon walked right here and looked at the Golden Gate Bridge. It's still my heart.
You're like, yes. I remember I was walking, I did a London walk. So you have to do the London walks when you go.
Ooh.
And it was my sister and I, and we did the Jack the Ripper walk, and then we did the cathedral walk, which is just like, two polar opposites, but here we go. And I did the same thing, walking through this beautiful cobblestone square. And I was like, and it was built in 1100. And I remember thinking to myself, like, how many other people have literally stepped in the same space as I have, in how many
900
centuries,
years ago. Like,
right? Right? Like, and exactly. And like for you to be like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing this exact view that was shown in that movie that my favorite actor was like it's just magic. And what's cool too, like not everybody's privileged enough to
mhm.
travel. We can do this now through the Google Maps, through the YouTube videos, like when I'm in I'm pretty obsessed because I haven't been on a plane in almost a year and a half. So every day I'm doing something new with Boston. And so I was like, oh, I should do like the quick 10-minute YouTube video of somebody who's already been to Boston and done everything I want to do. Because when I went first time, it was for a work trip. So I didn't get to see as much as I would like. This time around, I get to be a tourist. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should just YouTube somebody that has some high quality video just for 10 minutes where I can, do my own scouting, right? Because we have that
Yeah,
privilege now. But even if you can't travel, like that's such a great way to see a new city and just learn something new, which I find is super magical and amazing.
I love it. And me on the practical side, because I like to eat and drink when I travel. It's just who I am.
Yep.
Um, Actually, Dubrovnik. I on that trip, someone had advised me to check out this TV show called Three Sheets, and so it's just basically guys going to different countries and getting drunk in like little like places. And so they went to this spot that was in Dubrovnik, and the owner told them, for all of your viewers, if you come here and you say you saw me on Three Sheets, I'm getting you drunk. He was not kidding. That Three Sheets episode, I want to say, came out in like 2005 or something crazy like that. And we went there and we're like, yeah, so we saw this place on Three Sheets. When I tell you, this man got so excited, came out with bottles, and we're just like, oh, I don't even know if I can do this.
Right. You're like, we cool. We cool.
We're good. We'll have like a one shot with you. But there is such a benefit to like seeing the places that people have gone, and you get these like little intimate moments and a better understanding so that you can like be in it. You understand like more about the context of a place, I think.
We talked about it last time, right? Just like I think going to the big places is good, but also it's just nice. I remember being in Italy. It might have been Pisa, or it might have been, I can't remember if it was Pisa or if it was Florence. And it was just so sweet because it was these kids and they were just playing soccer in the square. And, it looked like maybe an aunt or a grandma was there just kind of watching them. And like, for me, those are the moments that are super beautiful and just so nice. And yeah, just even if you can't go to see that. And I think we also talked about, it can build that real empathy around people, just to know that people are doing the same things and they're just, hanging out, their kids, their parents, there's cooking going on, things that we all can relate to as human beings. And I think that's the beauty of it. If you can't experience it, we have no excuse to be able to at least experience it through a virtual or a video type of interface, to just understand other people and what they do. And it's fascinating, the similarities and the differences as well.
Yeah. And I think, you hit the nail on the head, because it's interesting. I think oftentimes, and this is why like the Facebook algorithm works the way it does, people want to see what they want to see, and they're not naturally adventurous to see or go somewhere or even watch something that's sort of out of their wheelhouse. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm a total punk. I will not watch horror movies because I will just be up all night. But I have seen horror movies. I gave them a chance. I pretty much know what you guys are doing. But it's really interesting to even watch places and absorb places that you may have preconceived notions about, and just understanding why they are at the place that they are at is so enlightening. And I think one of my best trips ever was South Africa. Not that I wasn't interested in going, but I had a little bit of anxiety because I'm like, it was an apartheid state, like 14 years before I went, and that's not a long time coming from the States, from the United States. Like, we don't forget anything. We don't forget anything here, like, ever.
Well, nor should we, because we haven't had truth and reconciliation. At least in South Africa, they did truth and they tried. We are still trying. So yes, there's that.
We still have, I don't think we've gotten to the truth yet. Like, that's one of those exercises that we need. And this is when we're talking about things like critical race theory and all of that. It's not to pee on the flag, it's to give us enough information so that we can properly heal. We can properly heal from it. But I was floored. Exactly. I was floored in South Africa how warm and accepting people were, and they were very open about their history. Oh yeah, I wasn't allowed to like walk around this neighborhood, a decade ago. But now it's different, and Mandiba told us, Nelson Mandela told us to let it go and move forward. And so that's what we're doing. And I'm like, so he just said it, y'all did it?
Yeah. What? Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I just finished Desmond Tutu's No Future Without Forgiveness, like literally just finished it. And it's like he mentions in his book, it was written some time ago, but he mentions the same sort of reconciliation that is happening and needs to continue to happen in Ireland. And I remember being at Ellis Island, and I remember being like, okay, even if people can't get to Ellis Island, right? Because not everybody has the money to travel. We need to bring Ellis Island to the people so that they can really understand their histories. And like, I remember one time my sister and I were trying to do the Canadian, because we were naturalized as children. So our parents had to do the Canadian test, but we were like, I wonder if we did the Canadian test, would we pass the citizenship test? Right? And I did pass it. I passed the US and the Canadian. So yeah, you know, like how many of us in any country could pass our citizenship test? Like, let's just have an honest conversation. And if we can't, then we need to learn. And I think that's what's so important is that learning. And exactly with South Africa, you know, like, okay, like, yeah, we're going to have a real history and honest conversation. And
Yeah.
then, and that's what's going to make this country better. Because we're all going to have an understanding. We're not going to sugarcoat. We're not going to romanticize, but we're going to be like, okay, this is what we can do better. Like, you know, I was touting the Olympics in my hometown earlier. And it was great. It was a wonderful experience. But what I did not like is that they were trying to make it like First Nations and Indigenous people were like, you know, part of the fold. And absolutely not, especially the horrors that we've been hearing about the Indigenous residential schools and the children. So it's like, okay, that was cute. Like you wrap them up into this nice little bow for 2-3 weeks, but like, what are we doing, right? For the centuries beforehand? And what are we doing now, like 10-12 years later? So
Or
it's
even the day
important.
after, let's be honest, right? Like
Yeah.
parading around tokens is never okay. And I feel like, you know, there are ways to celebrate people without tokenizing them. Number one, including them. What should we
Oh my
do?
gosh.
What do you guys want to do? How can I give you money, time, space, resources, and people to execute something that truly feels respectful to your culture and
Yeah, and like
celebratory?
that comes from you, that you say this is what would be amazing and this was how we can honor us. Like I
Yes.
don't need you to tell me how to honor me. I know how to honor me. So what do we do to give you the space and resources to do that?
It's I don't know if you've ever dealt with this, but in corporate I dealt with this a lot when we would have, you know, it would be a Diwali celebration, which we would have, you know, South Asian people, they would do stuff, and but then like the cafeteria randomly makes chicken tikka for a day, and then I'm like, is this like when you guys make chicken and like biscuits for like Black History Month? Because that happens at every corporation. I kid you not. There's not been a corporation that I've worked for, large corporation, that didn't have some weird stereotypical meal to celebrate Black History Month, and it usually involves fried chicken. I like fried chicken. Don't get me wrong. There's
Right.
always a little bit of truth to a stereotype, but
But you know what? I eat it in January, I eat it in August. Okay, can we please just have some food all the time, not just for 1 month at one point in time?
yeah,
Yeah.
we are multicultural as a country all of the time. It should not be just the month of whatever. I
Yeah.
understand, like, people have to be somewhat systematic in planning, right? Like that's what you do for, but just as you give us dry ass green beans with no salt on them, you can give us whatever, you know, more
At any
regularly.
point. It's just
At
not in
any point.
February. It's just not in May. Like it's all year round. 365.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. I mean,
365.
it's like getting, you know, when you, I was on Amazon looking for a toolkit. And I was like, I need to get some, freshen up my toolkit. I don't have tools for around the house. And I'm looking, and it was like, ladies toolkit. It's got pink on it. That's how I
No.
know it's for girls, because it's pink.
Oh
I
yeah,
can't
for
use the blue
sure.
one, and I certainly can't use the black one. I have to use the
No.
pink. Like,
First of all, pink's not my favorite color. I don't even barely wear pink. If I do it, it's on my cheeks. Like, come on. Yeah. And this is where, right? Like, this is where this intersection of these honest conversations and travel, like, just, it opens your mind. And at this point, if you have an internet connection, even if you can't have the money, there's no excuse. You can travel through YouTube. You can travel through the Travel Channel. These wonderful videos, National Geographic, and you can see the world. And that appreciation that you can have, you know, and just appreciation and that respect. And yeah, it just makes that world long. I think last time it makes the world smaller. I think last time we were talking about how, you know, when you get lost in a country where you don't speak the language, how humbling that is. Like you are
yes.
not, I don't know.
Now you're the dumb one,
Right. And
right?
so it's like, that's what allows you, I think, hopefully, if you're not humbled by it, that's on you. But I would say a large majority of human beings are humbled because of that. Because you get lost one time in a country where you don't speak the language.
Yeah. And you become basically a 5-year-old if you've ever been to like a department store with your mother and gotten away from her. That feeling where your whole heart sinks and you're like, I may never see my home again. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't know how to ask people for directions, and I don't know who, and it's, to me, it's just so interesting because we have these assumptions about people with accents, people
Oh,
who
yeah.
don't speak super clear English. And it's like, oh, you're stupid if you don't do that. And I'm like, number one, most of us couldn't pass like a third grade English exam if we really had to.
Right?
We had to, if we had to identify the present participle in a sentence, people would be like, I've never heard that word. You have. You've heard it several times in your schooling. You didn't remember it. But I love this. I think Sofia Vergara was, I don't think she was in an interview. Maybe she was in an interview, but she was saying like she was very emotional and she was trying to get something out and she couldn't find the right words because she was so flustered. And she was like, if you only knew how smart I am in Spanish, like I'm so much smarter in Spanish.
And how amazing is it that she can articulate herself in two languages, maybe even more, right? And yeah, you know, like if somebody is able to speak in your language with an accent and you only know one language, they're far ahead than you are. So appreciating people with accents and appreciating the fact that, yeah, I mean, English, is the only language I'm fluent in. I can pass in a French speaking and a Hindi speaking country. That means I can get water, shelter, food. Like I can get that.
She's like, I
you
won't
know?
die, but I
Yeah,
won't have that much fun either.
exactly. That's exactly right. And so I have so much appreciation for people that can speak with me, especially when I'm like, okay, only English here. Sorry. Like you're so much better than me. And the ability that Sophia, no, she is smart because she is very smart because she can speak many languages, not just one. And she's able to go and like acting. First of all, she's
Yeah.
able to act in a different, you know, language that she wasn't born. And then she's doing interviews upon interviews. I mean, this woman is everywhere. No, it's like, you're not just smart in Spanish, you're smart, period. And I think that's what's
Yeah.
beautiful. And like, if you meet people from France and Germany, they're like, yeah, you know, it's, you know, 3 different languages. And it's like, oh, okay. And I'm here twiddling my thumbs. Like, I know English good. I talk good English, you know, like.
That's not good English right there. That's not good English.
I speak English well, but I talk good English. So,
but that's the thing. I had a friend in college who has a very like austere kind of voice. She's very like severe, and she's got a little tightness in her jaw. She was a French major, fluent in French. No, she was a German major. I take it back. She was a German major, fluent in German, spoke a bit of French, and no. I'm getting this wrong. No, she was a French major. So she's a French major. She's fluent in French, goes to France. She's near the border of Germany. They think she's a German trying to speak French because and it's like she doesn't speak German. It's French, but yeah, she just has a very interesting way of pronouncing things, even in English.
yeah.
But language is such a funny thing, and it's so finicky, and there's so many languages that are so hard to learn, especially if you've been born in certain cultures and things like that. I think English is a dumb language. We've made so many changes and choices to it, and then we expect people to know what those mean, and half of us don't.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
if we go to the South, we're like, I don't know what you're saying.
Well, I mean, think about the word right, thorough versus rough. Like, are you kidding me? Like, you're trying to learn the differences between these words. They end the exact same way.
It's like, this is true except in that case, and so you're basically just memorizing as opposed to having a consistent vernacular, which is
exactly
interesting.
that you can apply.
I actually learned the other day, and I didn't even know this. Again, critical race theory. Sorry guys, I have to bring it up. But somebody was talking about how, like, you know, AAV, you know, African American vernacular English, AAV, it's not bad English, and it's not slang. It's actually not slang because what had happened was, that's probably bad English. When slaves came over, their sentence structure was different than in English.
Yes.
And so what you ended up having was the use of English, but in the sentence structure that they knew. And so it switched words around. That wasn't an unintelligent change. That was just this is how my brain thinks in structuring a sentence. It's either my ball or the ball is mine. You know, like a lot of languages are like that, where it kind of depends on where things are placed. And as I'm listening, and they're listing these different things, and I'm like, you know, different sayings, and I'm like, I just thought I spoke bad English as a kid. I just thought that was improper. It's not improper. It's a person who is migrant learning a new language.
Well, the thing is like when that example, I remember I was in a comms class in college. I had the privilege to go to college. And I remember our teacher saying that Ebonics literally follows the same structure as any other language. So Ebonics is not slang like you were saying. It is actually a language because it matches and has rules around grammar and everything, just like everything else. So these ideas, like I think about the same about maybe about pigeon in Hawaii, right?
Yeah.
And right. And so this idea of language and everything else and what we can put in terms of that colonizer mentality of what is right or what is English or what is a language. I mean, we got to really think about it. And it's just, and it's like critical. It's not even critical race theory for me. It's like, one, it's history.
Yeah.
And second, it's critical thinking, period. And I think that's what's important. And when you can appreciate that, and travel gives you that opportunity to appreciate that about other people, and stay there long enough, you're going to start talking like that. So there is that.
I have the worst habit of picking up accents and affectations of other people. I had a friend that had a lisp, and I had to control myself because I didn't want her to think I was making fun of her. But I just automatically, it's talk about code switching. I am in the code switching Olympics, y'all. You don't even know. But you're spot on with these places that you travel to and immersing in the culture and really understanding where their language comes from. I was just watching something the other day that someone made a comment about, well, why does Jamaican and Irish sound so close? And I thought it was just me, because I was like, they all sound like leprechauns to me. And people were like, what are you talking about? It's Jamaican. I'm like, they all sound like leprechauns. I'm sorry. Like, when they get really excited and start talking really fast, reason being, many Irish were sent to Jamaica early on to be sort of intermediaries between slaves and slave owners. So again, let's talk about caste systems and the things that we have. You're not a leprechaun. I'm sorry, boo. But you sound like one sometimes when y'all get together. I ain't gonna lie. But by the way, Irish folks are awesome, and so are Jamaicans. I love both places. But it was interesting. They were talking about this, and they go into it further. They're like, okay, so they were basically indentured servants that were coming down. And then people were like, well, I can't really get out of this. So then they stopped coming. So then they just started taking poor children from Ireland. Oh, yes. The other thing is that they were perishing. So what was happening was these Irish people used to like Irish weather, get in the Caribbean, it's baking hot, they're falling out all over the place. And so they thought, well, we need you to acclimate. So you need to be younger. And so they took all these impoverished kids, and brought them down there. And there was blending. And then the blending they got mad about. So then they started to separate people by cities and stuff because they didn't want the Irish to have like too many people in one place and like get together and overthrow it. And I was just like, that's crazy. They do sound like leprechauns. I knew it. But it's a fascinating history.
And that's the thing, we need to know this because you bring up so many points. So I do this in my anti-racism training, and we talk about this. We talk about the indentured servants that came over that were from Britain, lots of poor folks, Ireland, and the famine, and then where they came. And it wasn't just to Canada or the United States. It was also to what we call, Caribbean today, or what was then horribly called the West Indies, because, that was in India. And then you're also bringing up that mixing.
They got spices, y'all. It must be India.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh my gosh. I did this in one of my podcast episodes where I talk about Anglo-Indians. And so this definition has changed over the centuries, but at first it was British born in India because the British colonized India. Then it was Anglo-Indian, started incorporating the children of British and Indian parents. And then it went to probably one of the most famous Anglo-Indians, and the definition today is somebody who's Indian but is like in Britain or in the UK, which is Freddie Mercury, because his first name is Farouk. And so there's this, exactly, right? All these different groups and coming together and how they ended up there. For a long time, the Irish were not considered white in both Canada and the United States because of the horrific anti-immigration, the stereotypes around these folks. And think about even today and the anti-Semitism. At one point, Italians, right, weren't considered
Italians,
white.
Greeks. So, if you were Mediterranean, you were like out. Like there was no,
Yeah, because you were
yeah.
darker skinned. Yeah, exactly. You know, and so it's all of these things where it's like this. If you can understand that, you will have such an idea of like the differences and the different people, and you can have this idea of this monolith. But I knew somebody who was in Romania, and he was educating me about the Turkish and Russian influence in Romania. I had no idea. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. And then I had friends from India who were telling me about their Russian friends. And, you know, my friend from Russia, he and I were talking a month ago, and he's like, you know, Russia, they may be like white or white passing for what we would consider those words, but they're very Eastern when it comes to their culture. And I was like, wow, you know, really fascinating, because when I went to his house for dinner, they served tea right after dinner, you know, and
Yeah.
then we had some dessert, you know, it's a cultural thing. So yeah, it's that's the cool part of it. Like when
Now I want
you're
some
like,
tea.
yeah, right, there you go, right? Exactly. Wind down, literally wind down. Um, and it's just, you know, and I like literally recently I was like, dang, like I was looking at Nepal and Bhutan, and I was
Yeah.
like, yep, okay, there's a whole lot of mixing going on there, because I mean you got these borders of all these different countries that are so close, and you have these whole populations that are now countries. And I'm like, because when I look at Nepalese people, I'm like, wow, that's a mix. That to me it looks like a mix of Chinese and Indian folks. Like
Yep.
I feel like there was a whole lot of
And
mixing.
that's
There's something
exactly where
going
it
on.
is. It's like
Yeah,
China, India,
exactly.
Nepal.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I was like looking at the people at Bhutan, and I was like, dang. So yeah, and it just, gosh, you know, just understanding those histories and everything, that's like the uniqueness of all these countries, but also how you can see all these different, how everything was shared. And then you get all these groups that have come over from different areas to North America, and I mean there's issues, but then being able to see how things are incorporated, how things are changed. Like for example, in Fiji, where I was born, there's no like Hindi word for truck. And so what they did is that they would take the word of the brand. So there was a brand called Lori, which was a truck brand, Lori. So because they didn't have the word for truck in Hindi, now
They're
all
just calling it
trucks
Lori.
are called lorries based off of what they saw. So it's
Yeah.
fascinating, you know, that intersection, right, of the food and the cultures and the people, and I mean the colonization, but how people took in, like a lot of Indian instruments are from colonization, and they just kind of the leftovers from different cultures, and they incorporated into now what we call Indian culture. So yeah, it's just it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And like the things you
I love
learn and
that.
the things that you're like unlearn, because you're like, oh, I was told not something I thought that was factual, or like
Forget
we've
what you
incorporated
told.
really
That's
fast.
the number one rule for travel in my mind is forget what you were told. Like, see it for yourself. Because
I love
I
it.
mean, you never know. And it could go both ways. People would be like, this is the most beautiful place I've ever been. And then you get there and you're like, really? Because they got good grass? Like, I don't understand. Um, it
Oh my
depends.
gosh. I can't, you know, well, yeah, we can do another session about all the places we've been disappointed in when we got
Oh
there.
my
We were like,
gosh, that's our next one. We're gonna bring everybody down. We're gonna bring extra wine and bring everybody down and tell them about all the places that we were like, this is crazy.
yeah, yeah. Or it's like you walk by it and you're like, that's it. Like you're like, that was literally it. Or it's too packed and you can't see it, and you're like, wah wah wah.
It's too many people. It's too many people.
Yeah.
I Oh my gosh. Okay, so we have to do another session. We have been on for an hour, and this has been so
What?
much fun.
Oh my
Yes, it's been
gosh.
an hour.
Wow.
This has been so much fun. I feel like every time you come, we just have such a good chat. We'll definitely have to do it again. But for people who have just joined us, tell us where we can find you. Tell us where your latest work is at, where we can find you on the internet, and how we can support.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, inclusive screenwriter. So you can find me on here, inclusive screenwriter, inclusivescreenwriter.com. And then my latest, if you want to check out my inclusive storytelling podcast, it is focused on the arts and what inclusion looks like in the arts. That would be amazing. I'd love to connect.
Ooh, y'all get on that podcast. You already know the girl can talk. She can tell you all the stories. So you want to get in on the podcast. Thank you for joining us this week. It's always so much fun to see you. Thank you guys for joining us as well. I see, oh, you live for these every week, girl. I live for these too.
There you go.
Cheers. Cheers, y'all.
Cheers.
Have a great evening. I hope that this brought some joy, some laughter, a moment of connection that you maybe didn't have today or even the whole week, depending on where you're at and what's going on, and that carries you for the rest of the week. It's all downhill from here, y'all. We made it
Yes,
over the
for
hump.
you too. Make sure you take that. Make sure you take that advice as well.
I'm gonna do it. Cheers. Cheers, ladies. Thank you so much for joining. We'll talk
Thank
soon.
you. Bye.